Hi everyone, welcome to Lesson 2, Python, Expressions and Variables. This is the second lesson. There's 6 lessons in this course. The first lesson was how to install Anaconda. If you haven't done that lesson yet, or Anaconda isn't working on your machine, reach out to me if it's not working on your machine so that I can help you out. If you haven't done that lesson yet, you need to do that lesson before you do this lesson. You will not be able to do the work in this lesson if you've not done lesson 1 yet. So please stop this video if you haven't done lesson 1 yet. Go to lesson 1. Make sure Anaconda works on your computer. If you have done lesson 1 already, let's move forward. In this lesson, we're going to learn about the different data types in Python, how to open and use Jupyter Notebook, which is the core of this course. That's the tool we're going to be using throughout this course to do all of your Python programming. We're going to do some basic arithmetic in Python. Excuse me. We're going to learn how to create a variable object in Python. And you're going to learn how to download and do your homework, which will use the Jupyter Notebook to do your homework. So let's just jump right in. Let's talk about this thing called data types. Data types are the how computers store the data that you tell it to remember. So if you have a variable in Python, unlike other programming languages that you may have used before, like Scratch or like MIT App Inventor, when we get into more robust programming languages, it forces you to say, okay, if you're going to remember a variable, it's going to say what type of variable is it, what data type is it, and you'll have to tell the computer it is this type or that type, and the types don't mix together well. So you can't take one type and tell it to do something with another type. The computer will give you an error. Computers need to know what type of data it is, and then those types of data play nicely together. But if you have separate types of data and you ask them to work together, you'll more often than not run into an error. So we're going to go through what all the data types are, but we will not end up using these data types in this course. We're only going to use maybe up to probably 4 of them in this course, maybe 5. So the first data type is integer. An integer, and the type is int. This is like the abbreviation. You're going to see this when you get into coding. You're going to see this int, and this stands for integer. Integer is any whole number. So if you want to store any whole number in Python, you can create a variable, and the type of that variable would be an integer. So an example of this would be, whenever you're filling out a form and you type in your age, you don't type in that you're 16 and a half years old. You type in I'm 16, 1 6, and that's that data type is an integer. So whole numbers, no decimals, are integers. Floating point data types, or floats, those are anything with a decimal. So negative numbers, positive numbers, but if they have a decimal, so 100.0 is a floating point. Even though it's a whole number, because it has a decimal, it's a floating point. Strings, str. These are ordered sequences of characters. What that means is any word, any characters that you are using in an order. So you see here that like hello, Sammy, 2000, this, because there's quotes around it, is a string. The difference between 2000 as a string and 2000 as an integer is that 2000 as a string you won't be able to do math to it. If 2000 as a string, if you said I have a string that's 2000 plus 95, you will not get 2095. You'll get 2000. Well, you actually get 200,095, and that will explain that later. But you will not be able to do addition to it. And then other characters in other languages are also in strings. And to determine a string, it's usually you put quotes around it, and that tells the computer exactly this in this order. This is a string. And sometimes you can use apostrophes too, so quotes or apostrophes. Lists. Lists are ordered sequences of objects. So they're like strings. They definitely have order to them, but they are objects. They're whole objects. So I could have an integer here, and then I could have a string here, and then I could have a floating point. Lists are often used to, like think about it as like a shopping list. Like they're a variable, they're an object type that you would use to remember many, many things that you can kind of change them as you go. You could go in there and say, well, I want to take this part of a list, this object in a list out, and I want to put a new object in. That's why you would use lists. Dictionaries are outside of the scope of this course, but I'll still explain what they are. Dictionaries are like lists, but there's value pairs. So that means that you would have like a key and a value, meaning this is a great example here, put here. So you would have a key and then you'd have value, and maybe the key would be like name, and the name is going to be Frankie. So you could look up what is the name, and then it would spit back Frankie. Tuples. Tuples are lists, but you can't change anything about them. And you can know they're tuples if they have parentheses around them. You can't change anything about them. They're just lists, and they're set, and they're stuck, and there's no way you can alter them at all. So once you set what they are, no users, no programming can come in and change them. Sets are like lists also, but there's only unique objects. So if you have two of the same objects in a list, it'll compound it down to just the unique objects in the list. And then finally, Boolean, which we'll probably get into at some point in this course, hopefully, is true and false. So anything, so it's 0 or 1. If something is true, it's 1. If something is false, it spits back 0. Or in Python, it actually spits back the word true or spits back the word false. So those are the data types in Python. Today, we're going to be using integers and floating points. That's what we're using today. And we're not even getting deep enough so you're going to run into any errors with this. I just need you to know this for the future. Next course, you're going to be getting into strings. So, or next lesson, you're going to get into strings. So let's jump into this. So what I'd like you guys to do is open up Anaconda, and we're going to jump into let's see. We're going to jump into the Jupyter Notebook. This is what we're going to be using throughout this course to do your coding. So we'll click Launch. And it opens up in Chrome, and what it does is it shows you a folder and a whole bunch of folders inside that folder. This folder is actually if you go to your user, if you go into users and then you go into your user, this is actually what you're seeing. It's basically this folder. You can see 3D objects, Anaconda 3, Ansel, contacts. It's the same thing. It's just another way of viewing it. What we're going to do here is I would like you to say new folder, and you're going to see this untitled folder here that I just created. Click here and say rename, and we're going to call this Python. This is your Python folder. If I click on here, I open it up, there's nothing in here. Then I'm going to say new, and I'm going to make a new Python 3 file. And this is my Jupyter Notebook Python file. Jupyter Notebook is like a sketch pad for writing Python. It's super cool for learning from. This is not the software that people use to actually create things in Python. This is more the software people use to toy around and mess with things and learn how Python works. And then they take their understanding they get from here by like toying around. It's almost like, think about it as an actual notebook, right? You don't actually write a novel in a notebook, but you toy around, you take notes in it, you figure things out, and then you can move over into something where you'd actually write a novel, which would be something more like Visual Studio, which we could get into towards the end of this course. So this is where we would learn Python, and then we would just take all this understanding and go into another piece of software where we could, like PyCharm or Visual Studio, which you could actually write the software in it, and then dump out a Python file that you could then use. So this is Jupiter, and you'll see up here it says Untitled. I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to click here, and I'm going to change the name of this Untitled. I'm going to call this like Lesson 2 Notes. Let's say rename. And you'll see if you go back to this tab, now I have Lesson 2 Notes right here. Right? That's what I put in my Python folder. And then this here is where I can type in Python code. So if I go ahead and I type in Python code, it will then spit out right below it. It'll spit out, whatever I put it, the output of whatever I put in. So excuse my son, he's running around the back. If I hit, let's say 2 plus 1, and I hit enter, it gives me the next line. But if I hit shift and enter, it puts an output of 3. 2 plus 1 is 3. So if I do 4 plus 1 and I hold shift enter, it spits out 5. So this is using Python and Python's arithmetic to give me outputs. What we're going to go through first is we're going to go through a few different examples of how to use Python's arithmetic. And then if we go back to, let me just make sure I'm sticking to the agenda, which I'm not very good at. We'll do Python's arithmetic and then variables in Python, and then I'll show you guys how to do homework. So here is a few of, make sure you're able to get this again. And I can go back here, I can go to this top one, I can delete, and I can type in something else, because say 3 plus 5. Shift and enter. That's what I'm pushing. I'm not pushing enter. If I push just enter, it goes to the next line because it allows me to type in multiple lines of code. But I want to just, for the beginning, we're just typing in one line of code, and I'm holding shift, and then I'm pushing enter, and it gives me my output here. And then 4 plus 1, or I could say 3 plus 5, let's just do that, 3 plus 7, shift, enter. Okay, we've pretty much gotten that, all right? So let's just go through the different arithmetic functions that Python can do. So we just did addition, the subtraction, 2 minus 1, shift, enter, I got 1, right? Then multiplication is shift 8. Shift 8 gives you this star. So I can see 9 times, 35. And I got 315. Division is the slash. So if I do 9 divided by 3, dumps out 3.0. Notice I'm getting a 0.0 here. Automatically, when I do division, it gives me back a float because it anticipates that it won't always come out as an integer number. So, if I do, let's say, 9 divided by 4, I get 2.25. Parentheses, this works, the order of operations is much like math. So if I did, parentheses 2 plus 5 times 4 minus 2, and I hit shift enter, it gives me 14. So do these with me. You don't have to do the exact numbers, but take a second, pause the video, make sure you've gotten a little bit of experience doing this before we jump into the homework. Powers. So if you want to set something to the power of something else, let's say 4, and powers is 2 stars, 2 multiplication symbols. So shift 8 twice. 4 to the second power would be 16. I could do 4 to the third power, 64. And then finally, this may be new for some of you guys. I don't know if you guys go through this in math. There's something called Modulo, which is it's a way of finding if there's any remainders after division. So 9, and then this is the sign in programming for modulo or mod. Usually you'd hear people say mod. 9 mod 4. So if I said 9 divided by 4, what would the remainder be? Let's see. 4 goes in 2 times, so 4 times 2 is 8, right? 8, and you can't do it again, so you got 1 left over, so the remainder would be 1. So 9 mod 4, if I did shift enter, you get 1. This is a way of getting whatever's left over after you divide out. So if I said, I don't know, do 100, and then I could do mod 8, oh, shift, and that's 4. That's the remainder. So we did 100 divided by 8. The remainder of that would be 4. That's the arithmetic. There's other, no, that's all you pretty much need to get your work done. As for assigning variables, we're going to use 2 main types of variables, but this doesn't really matter right now. But I just want to keep it in your head. There are integers that we're using, and there's floating points that we're using. Either way, what happens is when you assign a variable, depending on what the value you give the variable is what you assign the variable as. For example, if I say my age, notice I have a variable here. I'm just going to say age. I'll keep this easy. Age equals 3. When I hit shift enter, once I do this, there's no output here. It just takes age, which is a variable. It says it's now I'm 3 years old, right? And it says, okay, age is now 3, which also means it's an integer because there's no decimals here. Now, if I want to see what my age is, if I type in age now, and I hit shift, enter, now it says 3. If I type in age again, 3. If I type in age equals, and I say age again, so my age equals my age, so 3 equals 3, but I'm going to add something to it. Let's say 7. Shift, enter. Now it reassigns age to whatever number age was. Age was 3. 3 plus 7. So my output now, if I type in age, is 10. So age was 3. So 3. It's going to reassign now age. So age is 3. 3 plus 7 is 10. So now age is 10. So when I call age again, it's 10. Couple of notes about naming variables. You cannot use spaces in variables. If I say my age, and I say equals, which is 38, and shift enter, I get an error. Oh God, I don't know what this is, because it doesn't know what my is. It's an error. It doesn't like this. So I need to, instead of doing it this way, I need to go up and say my underscore age, no spaces. And now it works. So if I type in my, if I type in my age, and say shift enter, I get 38. See? Few others, well, let's leave it at that right now. The couple other, you shouldn't start with numbers. If I say 7, I don't know, if I type in like 8, age, equals 38, it's going to give me another error. You don't want to start with numbers. It gives you another error. So it has to start with a letter, no symbols, a letter, one word. If you need a space, use an underscore, and then equals, and this equals will assign a value to that variable. Okay. So in order to do homework, what I've done is I've taken, I've created files for Jupyter that have questions in them that you answer in these boxes here. So what you'll need to do is you'll need to go to Google Classroom, and I have an assignment here. And in the assignment, you'll see these, like here's the lesson 2, numbers and variables, and you see IPYNB, basically Python notebook. If I click on this, it's going to take me here, and it's a no preview available download. When I click download, I'm going to want to download it. You can put it in downloads if you want to, but I like to be cleaner than that. I know I made inside my user, I made something called Python, which I should be able to see if I see John Laporto, and if I see, Python, I see my Python lessons here. I can just put it in Python and say save. So it'll be under your name. Mine's John Laporto here. It'll be your name and then Python. Put it in here. You can put it as homework if you want to make a new folder. Say homework. Homework. And then open that folder and I can put it in there. Save. And then what you'll see is when you go into the Jupyter notebook here, you'll see now there's a new folder called homework. When I click on homework, there's numbers and variables. And here is your assignment. You'll see I put a couple of notes here, and then I say enter an expression, which here, this first one, write an expression which will multiply 5 and 25. So you type down here an expression that does that. I'll give you 5 times 25. Uh-oh, I'm giving you guys answers. Shift, enter, boom, that works. Nice. Moving on to the next one. So on and so forth. Make sure you save before you close this. So that you have it, and then you can just upload this document back up into the classroom when you're done. Okay, that's it for that. If you have any questions, email me. This is the first time we're doing this. I know this is not going to work perfectly. This is the first time I'm attempting this. So email me if you have any questions. Hopefully this will work relatively flawlessly. All right, have a great day, everybody.